Thoughts on year-round schools? Student or parent? My daughter's schedule is 5 weeks off during the summer and then every few months it's about 3 weeks off. It's the same time off as the regular schools but spread out more. As a parent, I love it. It's far easier to schedule vacations so it's not just during the summer. As working parents, it's also easier to schedule time with work. It's significantly better for my kid too, as after a few weeks, she's ready to go back. It takes a bit of work scheduling for camps often, but otherwise it's hugely beneficial for us. What are teachers thought of this? Does it work better for you or no? So this is our standard schedule in Australia. Our summer break is 5 to 6 weeks, for public schools, then every 10-ish weeks we have a 2-week break. So we end up with 4 terms of roughly 10 weeks each, with 2 weeks off between them. It works well because after 10 weeks everyone is tired and ready for a break, and 2 weeks is long enough you feel refreshed but not so long kids lose anything. Yeah, it's standard in New Zealand as well, for 10-ish week terms, sometimes 9, sometimes 11. I think our term for this year is coming out to about 8 weeks, with 2-week breaks in between. Applies to both primary and secondary, although secondary schools tend to finish up to a week earlier than primary. I'm due to finish teaching in early December. My primary age stepkids will finish a week later than me. I agree with what you say, 10 weeks is definitely long enough, and term 2 this year was really difficult for a bunch of reasons, so everyone was ready for the break when it came. And South Africa, pretty much the same 10-week pattern. I have no idea how my wife and I would survive any longer than that. I'm all for it, personally. It would lessen the backslide, and more frequent breaks would be better for preventing burnout. 100% I'm for it. Summer travel is hot and expensive. Spring would be better. Our school doesn't have air conditioning, so this schedule would be unpleasant. Many days are already uncomfortable since we currently go through early June and begin in August. But this would add more hot school days to the schedule. I worked a year-round schedule for about 7 years, loved it. But it works best if the community gets on board, camps, daycare providers, library programs, etc. Yeah, agreed. My brother lives in an area that is pretty 50-50 split on year-round or traditional scheduling. It's a nightmare for him to schedule care for his kids for off times. Some places schedule with the year-round folks and some schedule traditionally. My district currently starts the last week in August and ends the 2nd or 3rd week in June. We have to have occasional emergency half-days or cancellations during both of those times because of how hot our buildings can get. Unless someone can find the money somewhere to retrofit all of our buildings with AC and then pay our electric bill, school during July and August is a non-starter. We're on a similar schedule. Agreed, AC sound be needed for sure. I wish. We love to travel, and yet we are relegated to only having enough time during the summer to go anywhere. I want to go to Maine and the Northeast during the fall. I want to appreciate the cool weather and see the colorful foliage. I'd also like to go to places when it isn't peak travel time. Ugh. This is my dilemma too. Lots of countries are not that great to see in the summer, and the suggested time is usually October or early spring. I did this as a teacher for 10 years. I was a specialist, so I worked additional days and had less breaks. Yet, I found the job to be less stressful and more manageable. I had roughly the same amount of work as a 9-month year but had additional paid days to complete it. I also had 4 to 5 weeks each year to take as personal days. I'd typically take a week off right about when I knew I'd be exhausted. One year I took off every Monday for the entire summer. On a 9-month schedule it was just perpetual exhaustion and being stretched thin. I miss it, honestly. It's sort of like walkable cities. Conceptually it's great, but the infrastructure is so ingrained around having summers off that there just isn't really a way to shift it to year-round without it being a total cluster. 100%. I grew up in NH, where we relied heavily on the summer tourist season. We've got summer camps, and many people in Mass, New York, CT, and RI have summer homes that they frequently stay in. So many high school and college students work at summer camps, restaurants, beaches, grocery stores, etc. Without the increase in revenue from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend, we'd suffer even more during the slow seasons. Would love it. I could take a vacation when it's not summer everywhere. An idea a school district near me proposed is 3 weeks off unless you need remediation, then those students only get 2 weeks off, meaning students would get help with what they don't understand after 8-ish weeks. Instead of being behind the whole school year. There would also be less summer learning loss. I think attendance rates would be higher too. It can save taxpayers a fortune if it is done with fancy scheduling in a big school. The school building can have 12-month occupancy with rotating groups of students on holiday at any one time, which can accommodate 20% more students without more space. Lots of places won't do it to improve education because tradition, but they will do it to avoid building a new school. There are pros and cons here. With a traditional winter break plus spring break plus summer break school year. I hate that anytime I want to go on a vacation during winter or spring break, I have to pay extra because it is a premium vacation week. At the HS level, admin do not like to schedule math and language arts class as a double period, block, semester class because of potentially long periods of time between successive courses. Example, Algebra 1 taken in the fall of 9th grade and Algebra 2 taken in the spring of 10th grade. Admin won't do it because there is a full year gap between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. If high-risk students in HS were scheduled for their must-pass classes during the fall semesters, then those that fail could retake it in the spring and not waste a year. With a year-round schedule, I would not want more work days. Student contact day counts stay the same. If the traditional 180-day school year with 45-day marking periods were kept, then I would want to start each marking period every third month. Because I'd still like to be off at the end of December. That would dictate how everything starts. Marking periods would start at the beginning of October, January, April and July. Then, almost 4 weeks off between marking periods would be most of December, March, June and September. As a teacher and a parent, I would try it. I wonder how HS sports schedules would be affected. Seems like HS football is very important to many schools/districts. I wrote this in a separate comment, but I'll add it here to answer your question. This would be great if the intermittent vacations were actually vacations. School districts in my area run on this model. Every 9 to 11 weeks, there are 2 weeks off. 5 weeks off during the summer. Unfortunately, there are always tutoring sessions, practices, and training sometime in those 2 weeks. I taught band in this situation and the fall break was never a break because there was band contest during the weekends of the break. Spring break wasn't a break because we had evaluations immediately after break. Rehearsals were still held during breaks. Summer break was taken up with 3 weeks of leadership/band camp. I imagine it's similar for other teachers involved in competitive activities or tutoring. If you're a parent and your child is in a sport or ensemble, you can't really schedule a vacation either without affecting the rest of the group. I know I'm in the minority, but I don't think I'd like it at all. 3-week breaks sound nice, but I really love the finality of the school year ending before a huge break and all the time to myself when it's nicest outside. I live in the upper Midwest. I think this type of schedule can make a lot of sense for kids and families. I worry about teachers who rely on summer jobs to fill in the work year. Remember, teachers are unemployed, not on vacation, during a traditional summer school schedule. Finding a gig for a 10-week break seems much easier than finding work for 2 or 3 weeks here and there. My boys all did year-round school from K-12. Loved it. We could go do our vacations when everyone else was in school. They learned and progressed more because they had less downtime between years. As a teacher, my mom loved the schedule because she said she didn't have to reteach the kids how to behave in a classroom for several weeks each year. They hadn't forgotten. I do know some teachers who make up their income via summer jobs struggle with this schedule as there isn't a good block for getting those extra funds. We only had year-round when we had too many students for the schools we had. So 4 teachers share 3 rooms. 1 teacher is always off and we did 3 months on, 1 month off. It sucked to not have your own room. Go off the month then come back to a different room so that teacher could go off, etc. You had to coordinate well with your team. The track I had was working all summer but had the Christmas holiday plus all January, so I liked that. As a teacher I loved having a month off every 3 months. Got all holidays too. As a parent to a kid on traditional schedule and me on year-round, not as much fun. The constant packing and unpacking not so great either. Plus the kids, 5 years old, had to keep learning where our new room was. Those were the challenges. To be frank, no, I absolutely hate it. I'm the type of person that finds it hard to switch off. All the breaks are too short for me to be able to reset for the next session/year, so I'm just more and more exhausted as time goes on. In the summer, it takes me a whole month to finally relax and stop worrying about XYZ kid/professional development hours/how should I change XYZ thing about my class to improve functionally, etc. etc. Then I can relax. But with the 5-week summer, that relaxation never comes. Because as soon as I'm finally able to stop stressing, I have about a week before I have to report back and then I'm stressing about putting my room together and opening professional development from the district. I teach at a modified year-round school, and while I admit I'm a bit jealous of my fellow teachers when my summer is ending and they're still enjoying vacation, I really do love it. Having longer breaks during the year give me enough time to decompress and refresh myself, so I find that I'm not getting as burned out as on a regular schedule. The students also don't lose as much during the summer. Not just content knowledge but just knowing the expected procedures for school, so I find I'm not spending as much time establishing procedures at the start of the year. I am against year-round school for multiple reasons, including the fact that the school windows don't open more than a few inches, there's no air conditioning and we get 90+ degree weather with 90+% humidity in summer. It's not tolerable for students or teachers. I think kids deserve big chunks of time where their brains aren't required to be on all the time. Brains grow with play and unstructured activities as well as from academic subjects. 3 weeks is not a long enough break. That sounds like an intolerable always-on schedule. That's barely enough time to get used to being on break. In the districts I have known that have done this, children in the same family but different schools don't always end up with the same breaks. Ditto for teachers who are also parents and their children. Daycare and before/after school is not set up to take full-time students for only 3 weeks multiple times a year. It would mean having varying staff levels for the on-off times. Daycare is already a mess here. Year-round is not good for secondary students, and as a parent/teacher who has a high school daughter on year-round, I resent and despise the schedule. And there is no solid research that the schedule improves student achievement. Many think it is out there, but go and try to find it for yourself. Year-round has been found to be useful to alleviate school crowding by offering multi-track scheduling, but that's about it. It's a fad that has been tried many times here in the US but seldom sticks where it is tried.